Everyone, I'm Sebastian, one of the TAs for this course, and today I'll be doing the lecture about Hitler's national community, its establishment, its routinization, and then the Road to War. So about the period between 1933 to 1939. So the initial period of Hitler's reign was crucial in the establishment of his envisioned national community, or Volksgemeinschaft, in that it laid the groundwork for the future Nazi state. This was a community of racial comrades, or Volksgenossen, comprised of the so-called superior German or Aryan race. Crucial to establishing the national community was the Enabling Act that was passed on the 23rd of March, 1933. But two important aspects of the Nazi state were set up prior to this. On the 13th of March, Joseph Goebbels' Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda was established that would ensure the German population was well-versed in Nazi ideology and that they were fully behind the regime as one community. And secondly, Dachau concentration camp outside of Munich was established on the 22nd to imprison communists and other political enemies who were viewed generally as separate from the idealized national community. This is the first concentration camp to be established, and its original purpose was the holding of political prisoners. From the initial stages of the Nazi state, they were trying to generate a consensus amongst its desired population and attempting to remove those who did not fit into their worldview. These measures were taken further with the 1st of April boycott of Jewish businesses, spearheaded by Goebbels, that saw members of the SA standing outside Jewish businesses to intimidate Germans from entering, labeling stores as Jewish on the outside and harassing Jewish people and those entering the stores. However, the boycott had to be called off after a few days due to people ignoring it, as there were many Jewish businesses that Germans got their food and supplies from, making it difficult to actually boycott these stores. A more concrete attempt to alienate the Jewish population was materialized through the 7th of April law for the restoration of the professional civil service, which allowed Jews to be removed from government positions, which included professors and teachers, judges, etc., because Hitler believed them to be, quote, a subversive, parasitic element, end quote, to be removed. An exception was made to these laws for Jewish veterans of the First World War. This corresponded with the forced but allegedly voluntary removal of Jewish people from all sectors of Germany, from the economy to private organizations, with SH stormtroopers throwing Jewish judges out of court. Nazi student associations throwing out Jewish professors, and with the 10th of May book burnings, increasing this aggression towards those still in their posts, while students and other Nazis burned Jewish, left-wing, and liberal books. Victor Klemperer, a German Jewish veteran and professor at Dresden University, noted in his diary on the 31st of March that, quote, the boycott begins tomorrow. Pressure to dismiss Jewish ones, employees. The Dresden student body made a declaration today. The honor of German students forbids them to come into contact with Jews. In Munich Jewish University, teachers have already been prevented from setting foot in the university. End quote. Additional early measures included a ban on homosexual organizations because these men were deemed to be deviant and unwilling to contribute to the Reich by reproducing. This saw brown shirts storming and smashing gay bars along with the Institute for Sexual Research in Berlin. The Institute was a center for LGBT rights and toleration at the time that also helped these people with personal issues and the many legal challenges they faced relating to homosexuality and sex work. It included a large library relating to LGBT issues that was burned, along with the previously mentioned unacceptable texts. From the Nazi mindset, this building symbolized Weimar decadence and degeneracy that was to be removed from the new national community. Further measures that hindered Jewish business, such as denying credit, forbidding them to advertise, and denying them to government contracts, were implemented in the summer of 1933. Moreover, through 1933 and 1934, there were rolling boycotts and violence inflicted on local levels, such as local SA or party organizations instituting these in their regions. Additionally, a more far-reaching measure was introduced through a new criminal code that was formulated that had harsh punishments and unrestrained police powers, the goal of which, to quote one of its authors, was the elimination from the racial community of elements which damage the people and the race, end quote. They were to remove the national community of community aliens, these people being political enemies, like communists or socialists, what could be called typical criminals, like thieves or murderers, and sex workers, who are all labeled deviant and asocial. Continuing a similar trend was the passing of the law for the prevention of offspring with hereditary diseases, on the 14th of July 1933 that allowed doctors and nurses to sterilize those with hereditary diseases and those who were deemed unworthy, like alcoholics, Roma, and asocials. The few hundred Afro-Germans present in the Reich were also sterilized in these early periods, as Hitler had a great aversion to what many on the right saw as the Rhineland bastards, the children of black French colonial troops who were stationed in the Rhine region. The Nazi state put a lot of effort into creating the national community by excluding people to keep it pure and make space for the more valuable Aryans, but the Nazis also crafted this through what they called Gleichschaltung, or shifting into gear. This saw all organizations be brought into line with the Nazi state. All trade unions were viciously disbanded and formed into one singular Nazi trade union, a process which occurred for every independent organization until all, except for church and military groups, were absorbed into the Nazi Party. This also included a series of popular measures, such as creating jobs and alleviating the massive unemployment issue in Germany, largely aided by rearmament and removing Jewish people and others from the economy. Within the Nazi Party, a divide had emerged between the revolutionary wing, primarily those in the SA around Ernst Röhm, the organization leader, and the rest of the party around the SS. The SS viewed the SA unfavorably and as a rival organization of power, a disfavor they shared with the army, who thought them to be too rowdy and disruptive of order. Hitler sided with the SS and the army, which led to the 30th of June 1934 Rumpusch, or the Night of the Long Knives, where Hitler purged the SA, or the brown shirts / stormtroopers, of their revolutionary wing in it, and also used it to murder any political enemies. For example, the leader of the SA, Ernst Röhm, former conservative chancellor Kurt von Schleicher, former Nazi Party theorist Gregor Strasser, were all killed. Hitler called this a cleaning up of the party of perversion and decadence, as for example, Röhm was a homosexual. This contrasts with Hitler's defending of Röhm's sexuality for years prior to the need to get rid of him. This secured the SS as the primary organization of the Nazi Party and won Hitler firmer support from the army. Moreover, on the 2nd of August, Hindenburg died, and Hitler assumed the role of president in addition to chancellor, and combined the roles into the Führer, with the army then swearing oaths of loyalty to the Führer. In creating the national community, there is an attempt to sever Jewish people and other undesirables from the Aryan population. This has been done through things such as removing them from the civil service or harassing people who are friendly with Jewish people. It is to make interacting with Jewish people and asocials or others difficult to maintain through social stigma or more tangible barriers like removing them from the workplace. Another front on the Nazi war to accomplish this was language. This was done through the Ministry of Propaganda with the goal of constructing Germanness and Jewishness as two mutually exclusive ideas in the public mind. Achim Greke, a race expert, outlined that, quote, racial and social boundaries between Germans and Jews were to be strictly drawn, end quote. The language of Nazism was to be disseminated into daily life and help shape the minds of the population. Nazis or conservatives were placed in important press positions, and laws were implemented so that all newspapers or journals had to be filtered through government agencies to be vetted for their acceptability in Nazi terms. The prime focus of this was outlining Jewish people as perpetrators of atrocities against Germans or as engaging in atrocity propaganda against Germany. For example, a German paper published that allegedly a Jewish paper from Prague published a story that SA men beat up a Berlin rabbi, but the Jewish community of Berlin allegedly declared that no such rabbi existed. It is unclear if the Prague paper actually published this story, or if the Jewish community of Berlin made that statement. The Nazi press was striving to push the narrative that Jewish people around the world are out to get Germany, or that they are the inherent enemies of the national community by them pushing allegedly false stories. Moreover, Jewish people were to be disassociated with everything German and moved into their own Jewish category. Specific examples of language can be found in that papers were not to use words and phrases like German Jewish civil servant or German Jew, but were to use language like Jewish civil servants or Jews in Germany. The papers were never to show SA beatings or really mention them, but only show enthusiastic Nazis and outline German unity and their common fate. According to Nazi ideology, the national community is built upon two pillars: German unity through popular measures and propaganda, and then excluding those who are unwanted.